Welcome to Diversity Conversations, where we engage in thought-provoking dialogue to identify leadership solutions to today's most challenging conflicts. Streamed live each week, Saturday 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. Hosted by Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Strategist and CEOs Eric Ellis and Tommy Lewis. Join us and add your voice to this engaging diversity conversation.
Good morning, Greater Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, the United States, and the world. My name is Eric Ellis. I'm the president and CEO of Integrity Development Corporation. I'm joined this morning by my good friend and brother,
Tommy Lewis, president and CEO of Make It Plain Consulting. Good morning, Eric.
Good morning, Tommy. What's up, man? You can see me working out too. You see the muscles? Tommy, how you doing, man?
Doing great, Eric. Doing great. Another good week, prosperous week, a week of learning, introspection. But again, I continuously like to shout out my staff. My staff helps me keep my head on straight because sometimes I float away.
I like that, Tommy. Yeah. Just tell the truth, shame the devil.
Yeah, I will float away and sometimes mid-sentence.
Right.
And then when there's projects that we're working on, I would have 3 or 4 projects open that I'm working through at the same time.
Right.
And I have to focus, and my staff, they help me say, hey, where are we with this? Oh my goodness.
I love that.
So that's how my week has been, that I have, kind of gotten out of my own way and allowed other people to lead me to myself.
Right.
And sometimes we need that every now and again.
So for organizations and leaders that somehow don't really understand how critical their staffs are, I am grateful, as Tommy is, for having staff that oftentimes we're working for them.
Yeah.
I mean, my administrative assistant come in every day. Eric, where we at? Boom, boom, boom. Knows I'm ADHD and wants to keep things in front of me so we keep the ball moving. My finance manager, I asked her, I said, can I even do this personally? Can I do this? Can I buy this? She has the full authority to speak into our budget around what I can and cannot do. Now, ultimately, I'm making whatever calls I need to make, but I'm grateful to have people that I trust greatly. Couldn't do this job without them. If they move away, I'm moving right with them. See, that's the beautiful part of the virtual world. They can't get away from me now. I mean, really, I had a staff that moved to North Carolina and lost a beat. Yeah, still doing a great job. I trust her with my life. And so I'm grateful for the team that God has given us and really want to give that shout out to them.
Indeed. Yeah.
We got a number of things that we want to talk about today. Tommy and I are just laughing. But we have a number of topics that we're going to weigh in on. And we're asking you, our community, if you've got some questions that people ought to be able to respond to that are either lighthearted or relationship-based or diversity-focused, we want you to weigh in on those as well. I'm going to start with a couple lighthearted ones. I'm going to pitch them at Tommy and see what Tommy says. Tommy, the first question of the day is, at what age should you tell your children Santa Claus ain't real?
This is a sensitive topic, Eric. So before I answer, disclaimer, if our young people are with you watching the show,
that's right.
Tell them to go in the next room.
There you go.
Right. If they are,
I probably already blew that.
So they're already looking around like, that's going to be real. There's a possibility. There's a possibility there. So, Eric, from my experience, I enjoyed my parents believing that I still believed in Santa Claus.
Okay, right. So you was ahead of them.
I was ahead.
But you enjoyed watching.
Even my mother, may she rest in peace, this beloved woman would give us Christmas gifts and never put her name and said from Santa.
Okay.
We always loved it as Santa. Now I'm 18 years old and 20 years old.
Right.
So I would say, realistically,
that's hilarious.
Probably around 10 or 11 years old, Eric.
Okay.
Need to have that
heart to heart,
difficult and courageous conversation.
Right.
Once we see that, first, I don't have a fireplace.
Right.
So that person that's coming into the home is not Santa, that's a burglar.
Right.
Secondly, in my family, most of us were African American, not all. And so this white guy, white hair, white beard, heavy set,
right,
in a red coat.
That wasn't working.
That's a burglar again. Gotta put him down. Right? So we need to have we need to have some facts around 10, 11, 12 years old.
Right. Okay. I'll tell you, I think that it's really about the age that they get more curious about whether Santa is real or not. Yeah. If they're still believing in Santa, then I don't mind them having whatever dreams they want to have. But I do believe, our friend has said 9 years old, and sometimes it's younger than that, sometimes older. But I let them drive that piece. I know some parents are like, I work too hard for Santa to be getting any credit for what I'm doing. What about the Easter Bunny? Now I'm gonna move to the Easter Bunny.
All right.
Is the Easter Bunny a cultural figure? In other words, is it only the dominant culture in this country that even believes at all in the Easter Bunny? Is that just a figment of our imagination? Are there any cultural groups that believe in the Easter Bunny, or is that purely a marketing ploy?
It's a marketing ploy.
Okay. Nobody believes in the Easter Bunny.
Yeah, we believe in the egg, but not the bunny.
Right.
So we have the Easter eggs. We're painting eggs, coloring eggs, hiding eggs. We're eating the eggs if we get them.
Right.
All that good stuff. And we don't even know if the egg's coming from a bunny or a chicken. We don't know.
Right.
But the bunny,
no bunny. Give us the eggs. And give us the colored eggs. And give us the Easter egg hunt. Yeah. And give us the Brock's, what they call them? Jelly bellies?
Yeah.
Jelly beans. Yeah, give me those. I still like those because it reminds me of being young at church where they would put together the Easter basket and would have some jelly beans in there. If they were the Brock's kind, they didn't have all the sour taste to them. They were just sweet. Bunnies can't lay eggs. That's funny. Thanks, right. So let me go to the next question. Would most people, and community, you can weigh in on any of these, choose to be rich or in love if they had to choose one?
Now, Eric, you're opening Pandora's box. To be rich or to be loved. And what I'm not hearing is famous.
Right.
So there's a difference between being famous.
Famous could be more painful.
Yeah, some people do, but being disruptive when you're with your family at dinner and things like that. So in rich is where you literally do not ever have to think about money. You have one account that will pay all of your utilities for the rest of your life.
Right.
You don't even tap it.
Right.
Your mortgage, your vacations, your cars, your insurances. Those are separate accounts.
Right.
Right. And money might not buy happiness. So I may not be able to agree with the Beatles. Money might be able to buy love to a degree.
Right.
All seriousness, I would say, I would like to be in love, right? And I think that love for me is an inspiration for me to achieve my goals.
Right.
And if that goal is to get business, get new and stronger relationships, or maybe even through the luck of the draw, God's grace, to become wealthy, I would like to be able to share any achievements and success that I might have with someone or some people that I love.
Now you can tell who the diversity consultants are and who's currently married, because both of us would rather be in love. And Roger, my friend here, is not currently married. And he says, I would rather be rich and unnoticed. Thank you, Roger. I appreciate that. But I'll tell you, here's what I'm going to say to you. And I know that this is the wisdom that comes with age. And I promise you, they're family members of mine, siblings, that would challenge me on whether this is a smart choice that Tommy and I have made. But I actually believe I'm glad to be in love both with my wife and in love with my children, because I think that that money, it just doesn't do what it promises. I mean, we sell it every day. So we sell rich, money every day, materialism every day. We sell it. And so you got to believe that it can do everything. But all you do is look at the data. And the data says whether you're Prince, whether you're Michael Jackson, whether you're Elvis, whether you're Whitney Houston, that money is insufficient if you don't have happiness. And I think that happiness, a big part of happiness is surrounds being in love with an individual or people. And in the absence of love, I don't think there's any other way to find ultimate happiness.
I agree. And I'm thinking, Eric, that, I've read up on very wealthy people. I look at it all the time. YouTube, I take a look at the most expensive mansions in the world.
Oh, I like that. Right.
There are mansions that are almost $500 million out there.
Right.
Definitely in the 100 millions.
Right.
And then obviously in the teens.
Right.
And then there's the cars. You have $1 million cars.
Right.
You have easily $200,000, $300,000 cars. So when I look at people that have wealth, are rich, for the most part, my observation is that they still desire to have that wealth, that money.
Right.
So their appetite for the money
is insatiable.
Right. With love, I think is different when you have abundance in love, right? Do we desire even more? Right. Or is the abundance when our cups spilleth over with love, when we say, I'm full of love, right? And I'm able to give more love.
Right.
Right. Or, so.
Yeah. So what time, I'm going to slow this down to say that I'm in total agreement with what Tommy just said. And basically what I'm hearing out of that is love is the value of a nutritious meal. And that money is fast food. And so you have to keep eating all that trash to get any nutrients out of it. But love has a way of being able to expand itself, to fill up other places inside of you. And I think that that's a powerful thing. Let's move to another topic. And I'm going to ask this question, and community, feel free to weigh in on this one as well. If you had to choose one role between you and your children's closest confidant or their father, which would you choose and why? Again, would you choose to be your children's closest confidant, somebody that they came to for everything, or their parent? Assuming that those aren't the same. I'm saying if you the confidant they were going to more often than the parent, which role would you choose?
What do you think, Eric?
Thank you. I'll tell you, Tommy, it would be, I got to say, and I think it comes from the ego that says that whatever the life and the experiences that I have are the best. So I'm falling down that pathway. I think no matter what, I would still want to be my children's father. I've wanted to be a father since I was a kid. And I know that they may not be able to come to me with everything. Matter of fact, I even encourage them to go to mom on some stuff, and if you got to talk about me, go to mom, get it out there, get it off your chest. I don't have a problem. I want you to be able to come to me with it, but I don't have a problem with you going somewhere else. Now, that's what I say, but I also want to be the person that has the greatest influence in their lives. And greatest influence, I think, is a lot of times it's being a listener. It's not being a talker and a speaker. It's being a listener. Tommy, what do you think?
I think the same thing, Eric. I think that, and I know for me, I'd rather be the parent. So when I think of being the father, I'm thinking my responsibility to my child, my children, right? I think of what I do for them. and serving in meeting the need that they have in whatever capacity that is. So it may be a confidant, it may be a protector, it may be a provider. Those are all encompassed in fatherhood, right? Or motherhood.
Yeah.
And so the confidant part, yeah, I would like you to come to me.
Right.
But if you don't, I'm going to be there anyway.
Right.
Versus, hey, come to me because I'm your confidant. And when you need a father, I'm not there. Right. When you need a parent, when you need a counselor, when you need wisdom or direction, right? So, hey, I'm coming to you because I'm at my lowest. I'm in my most confused state, and I need you to give me some pearls of wisdom.
Right.
Oh, I can't do it, but you told me what you wanted to tell me.
Right.
Thank you for confiding in me. I'll keep that between you and I, and have a good go of it.
Right. I tell you, Tommy, it's difficult to have a smart community because they come at you with smart stuff.
Yes, sir.
I mean, we need to dumb down the audience. Sandy, I see you. I'm coming to you in just a minute there. Let's start with Roger. Roger said something here. Let's see if we can pick this apart, make sure we understand what he's saying here. Tommy said love versus happiness. I love happiness and love versus being in love, and that's totally different. Tell me what you're hearing from that. I think he said some things that are profound. Sandy's going to say those to us in a different way too.
Yeah, that is profound. So got to unpack it. Want to invite Roger to share a little bit more as well. So happiness, I think, is definitely an emotional state where one can be happy at a high point, midpoint, or low point, still in that. And so and happiness comes from inside, however it's triggered by outside things.
Woo.
Right. So now I'm happy. So I've achieved this. I'm happy. I've obtained this. I'm happy. So it's fleeting. And love is different, where it is an emotion.
Right.
But it is actually, I think, it's a core value to humanity, to people.
Right.
So love is really articulated through action, right? Where happiness is kind of a cloud feeling, where love, it becomes deeper. That's the difference, I think.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So love is a feeling as well.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting because happiness, love is a deep feeling that we express, that we feel for another. It may not always have us happy. So I agree there's some challenges there.
Well, let me stay there for a second, because you hit it on the head.
Right.
Because, yeah, Eric, that hit a nerve with me. I do things for certain people out of love, and I am unhappy. There are decisions that I make in the name of love that makes me unhappy. Right. So, sure, I would love to be both, be loving and have happiness.
Right.
But yeah, I don't always want to do the things I do for other people.
Right. So we're going to torque up the stakes and suggest that we are adjusting our original just to put more nuance on it, to say that when we talked about love versus rich, that love is a reciprocal thing that is deeply held by both parties and they both value.
Okay.
So that's so it's not me being in love with somebody that ain't in love with me.
Right.
It's not me not being happy. It's me being totally happy about this love versus having all the material riches. And so you can still toy with that. Let's move to this with Roger, then we'll come to you, Sandy. So Roger said, closest confidant, there are a lot of fathers and not daddies. And so I believe what you're saying here, Roger, is that all you have to do is be a man to be a father.
Right.
All you do is impregnate a woman and have a baby to be a father. To be a dad is really one who is there and deeply invested in the life of your offspring.
So I do understand what Roger is saying here. Another side of the coin and some of it's based on how I was raised and what I experienced with my children. I was told, and I have said that, I'm not your friend in so many instances with children. I don't care if they're, young or get older. Sometimes I'm not your friend, but I am your daddy. So a friend could be a confidant, a close confidant, right? A best friend. But then there is that difference between that confidant and the parent. So the parent has, again, certain responsibilities.
Yep.
A confidant may have the responsibility of receiving confidential, private,
right,
sacred information,
right,
keeping it to oneself, not judging the other person, right? Maybe even offering up a few nuggets of options to pursue. But the father, the mother, the parent may say, if you tell me or not, I've seen this. Here's what the advice I should do. So you don't have to tell me that you're struggling.
Right.
Eric,
I see that.
Right? Yeah. Because in the confidence, I'm struggling mentally, emotionally, spiritually, etc. Right. You don't have to tell me. I'm your parent. I see what you're saying.
I feel it.
Absolutely.
That's powerful.
So now I'm going to just parent up on you.
So let me give a disclaimer to say that Tommy and I are both diversity, equity, inclusion consultants. So we don't believe in stereotyping people. Right. But having said that, as a disclaimer, I would say to you that my observation has been that men and women sometimes differ in terms of how they deal with their children around this whole notion of the confidant. And I would say that what I've seen between Judy and I is that Judy is the one that's there. So her phone is literally hopping off. I mean, it's just one kid after another. All four of them just ding, texting, call, ding, ding, ding. So that happens because they ask their mommy everything. And she weighs in on everything.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm saying sometimes I sit it out. Yeah. I sit out things for a couple of reasons. Number one, when I know that you've engaged something, done something, said something, acted in crazy ways sometimes I know that I have to sit back and let life be your teacher. That I don't want to weigh in on everything because it's no longer my place to try to sort of buffer you from the experiences of life. The other thing, this is the other thing that I would say, I know this does not fit every couple, but I've seen with Judy and I, and I've seen with a number of her friends, that sometimes mothers have a harder time watching kids fail. It feels like they have more, they feel more like it's on me to ensure that you have everything that I know will be helpful for you.
Yep.
And I don't know, I don't want to be seen sexist for that. That could be, and I'll accept that. But I think that from a role development kind of standpoint, and I promise you there are going to be exceptions to all of that. And then the next thing, Tommy, weigh in on that, then Sandy will come into your comment.
Yeah, I'm excited to get to Sandy. Eric, you brought up a good point. I want to hit this real quick. We'll move on. So just as recent as last night, my wife and I grabbed a pizza, and our conversations go to and from and all over the place. We're talking about people there. We're talking about the television, et cetera. And she said to me yesterday, for the first time in our 6 years of having a show, she said, have you ever considered having me and Judy on the call on the show to talk about the differences of how women think?
That's excellent.
And how men think.
That's right.
And I came back to say, no, I haven't thought about that. I didn't know that you would, like to be on the show. I know Judy's behind the scenes, if you will, and my wife.
Oh, she jumped right out there on this one too. Her and Penny, they grill us over, man. So the audience will love it.
Love it. That's what I was going to ask. So we'll have to go there and then get some other, folks that have studied, the different generations or genders, I should say, But definitely
Absolutely.
may have Penny and Judy on the line. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Right. And so let me come back here and say, kind of think it's unfair to separate those two into absolutes. We agree.
Yeah.
Also, that changes over the years and with the child's age. So I agree with that. Let's come to Sandy's most recent comment that she says, and I like this one a lot. If my children know they are loved unconditionally, then being their confidant could be very natural.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And as parents, we hope that we are the confidant of our children, right? Because we are, for the most part, again, generalization, we are instilling and or pouring into our children with our best investment, right? So we want to give them our best advice, direction, resources. And if we can do that, then it minimizes their opportunity to go outside of us to get inappropriate, if not bad or terrible advice.
Right.
Because I know that my little people, adult people, they've gotten some bad advice.
Right.
Right. I don't care if it's about pursuing their careers or going to college or dating. They've gotten some bad advice. And I've asked them, like, who told you that? Right? Or I can't do this because this is what other people will think.
Right.
Wait a minute. Wait. Are you in a relationship with everyone or that person?
Right. Right.
And then if you ask me, okay, ask me of my failed relationships, I can run through years of failed relationships and how I got to this point. And I only bring that up because when you have that confidential conversation with someone, you can bring your authentic self without any fear of shame, blame, or judgment. And that's what ultimately we want to do, is create that environment as a parent, as a friend, as a confidant, all encompassing to lead that person and ourselves to the next level. This is fun. We're going to have
this gets even stickier. Let's continue.
All right.
I'm going to throw this out there, just throw a little curveball in it. And Sandy, Lydia, others, Roger, jump in. What does confidant really mean? And to what level of transparency are we looking for? And should there be boundaries from the parent side? In other words, should a parent be fully exposed to the child, or should there still be some parental mystique that you don't sort of burst the bubble of, superstar parent? Now, I tell you, I know the real answer is we don't want a plastic imaginary image in the minds of our children. So I don't think that that's helpful at all. And matter of fact, they probably know you a lot better than you think they do.
Yeah.
So you not all that, perfect. They see you, they're experiencing you.
Yeah.
But I'm still asking the question, at what level? Because we've seen it at younger, and I think the answer probably is it depends, but we've seen at younger ages where some parents tried to become their children's friend too early. And they sort of then avoided some of the responsibility. That means that I'm not going to be your friend all the time. I sometimes have to be the authoritarian figure. But I'm saying that as we're looking at this whole question of confidant, are there boundaries that you need to set? Is it just you being open to receive all that they can tell you?
Yeah.
Or are you also responsible to share some things back to them? And then so any thoughts about that, Tommy, and anybody else in the community can weigh in?
Yeah, I think that for me, again, personally, I want that mystique. I don't need to know everything. I don't. In our family, we have the blended family. We have our younger to adult children, and we have grandchildren. There are a lot of things that the adult men go through that at this point, I don't need to know about those nuances. Because if you're over 30, in some cases over 40, right, you're grown.
Right.
And and I have experienced or not some of the things you go through. Now, if you are 3 years old, if you're 6 years old, then I'm learning you, you're learning me, and there's some things, some nuances I have to know. Then we get to that second tier generation, your grandchildren, right? I'm playing a different role altogether.
Right. Back to Mystique. Learn
Mystique. I'm coming in and I'm pushing out.
Right. That's right.
Right? Go over there.
That's right.
And as a man, not to be sexist, I don't even entertain certain things. Just go talk to your gammy. Go talk to them, right? Because when I come in, I'm making decisions.
Right.
About certain things.
Right.
So, yeah, we different roles, different children, different times.
Y'all on fire today. I see we struck a nerve. Y'all on fire today. Let me come to this, Ken. I thought a lot about that question. Here, let me give an answer on this, and then I'm going to go to see what Ken and others have said here. What I would say, my truest answer is that it is entirely situational. And for me, there is no predetermining what the answer is on this one. The ultimate answer is it's the same answer around Santa Claus. That, hey, if you like believing in Santa Claus, that he's, a real character that's coming, then I'm with you. As soon as you get to the place that you no longer believe in Santa Claus, then I'm with you there. And so in this question, then I don't necessarily run out in front of you. I'm literally reading you, listening to you, partnering with you to determine what you need to hear from me in order for you to be your most complete self. And what I want is I want my children to never believe that there's anything that they've done in their lives, that there's a mistake that they've made that is so grave that they could never bring that to me because I'm somehow so infallible and perfect that I would be overly disappointed at their failure. So that's where the rubber meets the road for me. What? Heck no. You need to know who I am to a certain level that satisfies your ability to maintain your own self-esteem and not allow the enemy to sort of work his way in your mind.
Yeah, we're going to continue to get with Ken and others. Brother Crane is on. Welcome.
Thank
brother.
you. Thank you. Absolutely.
Let's keep going. I had a question, but we'll come back to
Hit Sandy's. What do you think there?
Yeah. So does setting the rules and the boundaries mean you can't be a friend? I would say no, that doesn't mean that you can't be a friend. Right. At all. Setting the boundaries, setting rules, that not only is parent and child, but that happens, I think, in our everyday relationships. Co-workers, hopefully we set rules and boundaries with our friends, even our different friends. In other words, we have different circles of friends that we leverage, use, and connect with in different ways. And so those boundaries sometimes don't even mix. So if we're talking about children, if we have multiple children, we may have some rules and boundaries for one child, which may be different than another. Right?
That's a good point there, Tommy.
So that's and then with friends, our own friends, sure, we have friend circles that never connect or cross at any time or any path.
Tommy, you said something huge here. I got to go back to it. And community, I want to hear when you're weighing in on it. He said we got different kids, and sometimes we have to establish different rules and boundaries. I'm there. Let me ask you this. Community, I ask you to weigh in on this as well. So I know I got 4 children. They remember their own growing up slightly different. And I believe that just like the most effective educators educate to the individual learner, I think that the most effective parents are parenting to the unique needs of each child. I think that you should have an overall desire to deliver genuine and fair love freely and in a balanced way across everybody, but it may not manifest itself in the same way. But sometimes people just remember differences. I think they sometimes remember things differently, but I think we also treat people differently. And we cannot see ourselves fully. So even if we claim that we're trying to be objective and fair and balanced with all of them, Doesn't work out that way always. I mean, I know now in retrospect that I was probably my father's favorite. I didn't feel that when we were going through, but now that, but my siblings kind of saw it that way. And now in retrospect, I see a little bit of that as well.
Wow. Rich conversation. Roger comes back in. Thanks, Roger. I have 6 brothers with the same mother and father, DNA, but some have let outside influences influence their behavior, not taught in the household. Spot on.
Right.
Spot on. So 6 siblings, right, coming from the same DNA, but we get different outcomes and results, i.e. behaviors, even mindsets. Right. Families and friends is an interesting phenomenon, right? Again, we may be happy with certain family members, right? And some family members we have fallen out of love with. Real talk. I'm just talking about family members, cousins, aunts, uncles, etc. Then when we get to the nuclear family, there are moments that we may be in love, but I'm unhappy with you. Not for a day, but for an extended period of time. Right. And with our children, I remember times, Eric, that my father flat out told me, I don't like you right now. And I know exactly when it was. I was a star football, basketball, baseball, and track player. Honor roll.
Killing your oats.
I was homecoming king.
Yeah, you killing.
Prom king. I was killing it. Right. Couldn't nobody, including my parents, tell me nothing. And my father leaned in on me and said, I don't like you right now.
I knew my poop didn't smell.
Yep. It was fresh, like
potpourri. Yeah, this jelly bagel. That's what we was thinking.
So we, me and my father had we had a very close conversation. I would say, yeah, and it was close.
Yeah,
right. It wasn't from afar. It wasn't theoretical.
He was up on you.
It was tactical.
I like that. I like that.
Close.
Yeah, he about to put hands on you.
Oh yeah,
You think you're a man.
Here we go. Ooh. And at that point, I saw him as my father, and at the same time, I saw him as a confidant, Eric, because he saw through my stinky mess.
Right.
And I said, I can't hide anything from this man. My mother, on the other hand, had already known all of that.
Right.
She just
it's fine. He's still tying me down.
No, she just acquiesced. She said, I know all that. Okay. You know, my father confronted me.
Right.
Where my mother's like, wait for it. Because my mother said, I knew you before you were even born. I knew you before your father even knew you.
I still see the real.
Oh, yeah, they brought it. Oh, so here, I need to follow up on this question real quick. And community, I want you to chime in as well. So as a parent, Eric, what would you say to yourself or to others that go through this, where the child or the children are evolving, they're growing, they're maturing, and they get to a point of their own self-reality that is beyond the parent,
right?
Be it spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, that literally the parent may see the child in yesteryear. That's my baby. Your baby is 48.
Right.
That's my baby, 32.
Right.
And always seeing that child, that baby, through yesteryear's lens. What do you say to that parent to let go?
Come on, Tommy Lewis. That would be suggesting that the parent, in fact, can see that they're stuck. I would say that most of us, here's what I knew as a coach. I knew that a daddy coach, it wasn't possible to be objective, period. So I had to put in some safe, foolproof kind of, safe-proof kind of strategies. On my AAU basketball team, I only took 10 boys because I knew I could play more than that. And I literally played one set of boys, started the first quarter, second set started the second one, and then whoever played the best at the end played the, because I knew that I could not objectively see my son and that there would be too much temptation So I'd say to you that the problem for most of us as parents is that we're not objectively seeing our children for who they are and where they are. And some of the things that we are doing that are disabling them, we think that we're doing those to demonstrate our love. And I'll tell you, I think that's a part of the reason why this generation is different than our generation.
Yeah.
We were shut out there. We were thrown out there a lot more to have to be dependent and to have jobs and responsibilities and all those kinds of things. And when we got our own children, then we started saying, well, maybe not. I mean, they don't really like it. And, you know, we didn't see ourselves. We didn't embrace that we did that.
Wow.
But I would say too often, Tommy, that we did that. And I'd say the problem is that some of the ways that we've raised our children make it less, it makes it less possible for them to sort of blossom more quickly. But I would say in the end, I'm going to shut up after this. This is my optimistic thinking, that just like that commercial that was on Italian, spaghetti sauce, it's in there. Yeah. I do believe that ultimately what you've instilled in your children is in there. Your parenting sometimes will delay its ability to sort of manifest today, but I think that it's coming sometimes, unfortunately, after you go.
Eric, that was very helpful for me, particularly it's in there. With my youngest son, Bryce, who has gone through not a lot, but finding himself very quickly, young guy, smart, intelligent, passionate, and falling into some pitfalls, some bumps. I've always been secure in him finding his way, but my prayer since day one to God was, please, God, be with him.
Right.
And that what I give to him is through you in the best interest of him. And I want to pour into him that it's in there.
Right.
And you have affirmed to me that it's in there.
It's in there, baby.
I was about to jump out of my seat.
Right.
Like, man,
right.
I work so hard in all the kids, but poor.
Right.
Is it sticking?
It is. There's no doubt about it. And I've seen it. So let me get, Roger, this is such a profound question. I'm going to go back to yours, but I'm going to go to the other side. You said DNA is the same, but outside influences. Let's look at DNA being the same and them acting out things that you've acted out. And so right now I'm watching one of my adult sons who's, all my kids are ADHD, just like me. And so now, he's a grown man, but all of us have these ouchy places in our lives as a result of our experience with neurodivergency. We're all ADHD. And so I know that when I was growing up, a lot of my life, I didn't believe that I was very smart because reading was hard and I had to stand up and go over things a couple of times. And it wasn't until I was an adult that I started believing, hey, maybe I am smart. Mm-hmm. But what it did is it caused me to take on fights. If I felt like anybody was insulting me or acting like I wasn't smart, then I would fight. I would argue with them. And I'm watching him do that same thing today. It comes off as arrogance and ego. But the reality is that it's a defense mechanism over some negative criticisms that you've seen in your life, but also some low self-esteem issues that you have today. And so what you need is healing for those hurting places. So when I watch him, so I'm saying all this, Roger, to say that as the parent with the similar challenge, you have to keep growing. Because today, as an adult, as a grown man, I'm still every once in a while taking on fights unnecessarily that are demonstrating, well, I can say whatever I need to say because you're wrong. When in fact, I need to humble myself, even if my eyes can see that you have a motivation that's not for me. I don't have to respond to all of that with insult and disrespect. And so when I see it in my son, the first thing is not to give him a lesson about don't do that. The first thing is to tell him, here's how we've come to this place. I just did this the other day. As a business owner, you can win the battle and lose the war. In other words, sometimes we'll brag to each other. The client says something, we get them told, we get them, okay, keep doing that. Keep getting people told and see what you get back for that. You get a lot more time on your hands. Don't get a lot more time on your hands. Because you couldn't humble yourself, shut up, and keep learning. Watch the impulses and all like that. So sometimes when the DNA is the same and they're acting out some of the dysfunctional kinds of things that you have acted out as coping mechanisms to cover over insecurities, you've got to then try to educate them in ways that make sense to them. If they're prepared to hear that lesson, most often they first of all need you to just use empathic listening and say, hey, let me see if I understand what you're saying. Yeah. So you don't start with the lesson. You start by listening, affirming them. And then when it looks like they may be open to some of those lessons, then I think.
Yeah, Eric, what you're saying, you're hitting the nail on the head. And I want to say this about the community. And I'm going to say it directly to you. You all showed up today like you're trying to take this show from me and Eric. Come get it.
We might be on the phone too.
We're working on it. We're working on it. Yeah. Love the community this morning, just chiming in. We're back and forth. We're having this conversation. We have to keep this conversation going.
Right.
So when we leave each other on Saturday mornings, we're in our schools, we're in our place of worship, we're in our communities. Let's have this curiosity, right? Have the discussion, explore this. Ken Wilson, once again, he talks about my sons tell me everything. I don't have that relationship with my daughter. That was the point I was making again we have multiple kids, multiple children, and we have different levels of relationship with them, right? I think we have some more down the way.
Let me hit this one a little bit more. Okay. So I said something earlier that I'm now rethinking a bit. I talked about gender roles. And then I talked about the kids, every one of them's going to Judy, woo, just like a merry-go-round. I have to look at that, and now I am getting more of my children are hitting me up. Because I was comfortable with, hey, they go to their mother, and I'm grateful that I'm married a woman that I love, that these children love. And they ask her about everything. Hey, Mom, I got a mark here. Can you look under my armpit? I mean, just all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
I think that's great. But I would also say to you that that's not simply a gender thing from kids would naturally just go to the mom. I think it has something to do at times about who's made themselves available for that conversation. Ken, I hear you saying, hey, my sons tell me everything. I'm starting to see a lot more of that come to me now. I'm getting a lot more calls. And my kids took me out to the brunch one time. And then they said to me afterwards, hey, this was really good. Because we go to mom and mom talks about all the nurturing things, but dad can tell you about the risky things and risk taking and other kinds of things. So they saw, hey, there's a good difference here. But the other thing that I noticed is that if anybody calls me during the day and tell me I'm in something, then I'm bifurcated. I mean, I'm really, what? You got a quick question? Yeah, get back to you.
Yeah.
And so I have to make sure that I'm making enough room for all of them, that my brain is not so occupied by being the provider. And just really, that's what my focus is. When I became a parent, I went crazy in terms of my role is to protect and provide. I'm going to do that like a monster. I'm an animal on that. If somebody grabs my kids, I'm an animal on that. Right. Sorry. But sometimes the animal, you have to start listening. The animal, make time. I don't get to talk to you about anything because you're being the animal. So I have to stop being an animal. And start saying, hey, what do you think? I know I've been saying.
Hey, you want to go talk to mom? You want to talk to the animal?
Right. Now, what I can do that the mom that does, she's watching. I actually can listen better, believe it or not. Yeah. Mom does a lot of talking, boy. And if she ain't, I'm not talking too long. I'm fixing this. I'm erasing this for you. Don't nobody call my wife and say I said this because I'm going to deny it. even though the evidence is right here in black and white. Tommy, it's an interesting world, man, that we live in.
It is.
But this is interesting. And I'd say, Ken, here's what I'd say about this. I don't have the same relationship with my daughter. I think everything happens in stages at times too.
I agree.
And so I know that all of my kids, I thought I was great as a father of young children. I was great as a coach of young children. I was great as a sort of an ambassador. You know, I take them around with me, stack them all in that, station wagon or whatever. I could take them all everywhere and just tie them all together. But as soon as they got old enough to really talk and think and have intelligent conversation, boom, I was better listening to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm grateful that my daughter will now call me up. In part, they call me up because mom's so busy on her job that she don't have the time to be sitting around talking to them during the day. So now I know I'm the second guy. I do know what time I'm second. Yeah. There's no use in saying I'm not. I am second.
Coming off the bench.
I'm coming off the bench, but I ain't mad about it. I'm so glad to get calls out like, their mom must not be there. Right. So,
all right, this is bad.
Yeah. And now I know I got to clear it because I can't be busy every time they go, or this will go away. And I'm getting old. I won't be working forever, and I'll be waiting by the phone. And don't let mom die. Right. There might not be no reason to go. No, so we're trying to avoid that. All right, so let's move to see what else we have.
For me, and this is Lydia again. For me, I'm open with my daughter. I don't share my problems with her. What I share is that I'm going through the X, Y, Z, and that I feel the same emotions as every human. So really humanitizing the experience, the human experience. So some of those details of the adult, the parent, the child, or the young adult does not need to know. Mm-hmm. Some of those details. And in some cases, Eric, your child who knows you by way of observation, by way of what you say, they may tell you too much information.
Yeah.
I mean, that's too much. I don't need to know that about you and mom or you and dad. I don't even need to know that about you. Mm-hmm. Right. But I want to know if what I am experiencing, what I'm feeling, is it quote unquote normal? Mm-hmm. She's saying, yes, I have the same emotions. It is normal, right, to feel love, to feel heartbroken, to feel joy, to feel anger. All of that is normal. But how do you identify what that emotion or feeling is? How do you understand where it's coming from, articulate it, and apply the learning such that we're not behaving as a 33-year-old like we did when we were 13. Mm-hmm. And that's the evolution of the parent. Right. So if we have multiple kids, then unless they were born all triplets or quadruplets, if they were born over a period of time, each child will experience that parent differently. Right. If you have 10-year difference, a 15-year difference between the oldest sibling and the youngest, those are two different parents. Right. One had the first child at 20, the other at 35. Very different, very different. So as we look at the relationships, and a lot of laughs and the community chiming in, there are a lot of books that have been written about parenting. Yep. I would recommend, to really know about parenting, you probably have to buy every single parenting book in the world. And then
capture your kid.
And then write your own book.
Right.
They will give you nuggets.
Right.
Some universal, some kind of culturally based, or generational based. Right. But at the end of the day, this is customer service. You have to
trial and error,
address the customer in front of you, right, as well as your own self.
Right. Yeah. It's like when we had our first child. They put us at the hospital.
Yeah.
We're going home. But where's the manual? I mean, what else do you give us? You shoved us out the door in a day. We had a car seat.
Yeah.
And we were wondering if the child's going to die between the hospital and we didn't know anything. That's what a lot.
Hey, this is the truth.
There's no manual or anything that you can give us. I mean, I literally had, that's when the baby monitors came out. I had the baby next to me and the baby monitor in the basket. Tony, they're right next to me. I got a monitor in there and one right under my ear.
Just, you're hearing an echo.
I hear anything. Yeah, right. So now, I would say that in terms of what Lydia said here, in terms of bringing our children up and how much transparency, here's what I'd say to you, and Tommy and I are talking from our experience as parents, that I think that one of the things that we have to watch out for is some of the fantasy that we create in the minds of our children. If we haven't shown them transparently who we are, then we're going to see some character things in them that are a reflection of what messages that we sent to them. I'll never forget, that I was on a golf course one time, and Judy had prayed me off the golf course for about 5 years. Finally, God let me go back. And I went back, and God was like, after the second hole, Eric, I need you to go home and do a Bible study with your boys. And I went home. I was like, no, God. And so I went home and said, boys, we got to do a Bible study. Mm-hmm. And they were like, no. I said, me too. I feel the same way. But, God said it. Let's go to the room. And literally, we started talking about pride. Mm-hmm. And I started asking them, what do we like to dress? So why do you like to dress? And I've shared this story before. Mm-hmm. But I would say to you, what I recognized is that there were some things that my children had picked up by observing me and my values that were not values that I would want to have consciously taught them. Mm. So I think that, Tommy, we have to keep growing. We have to keep learning. We have to keep apologizing. We have to recognize that everything that we do, we're trying to make it easy for them. We want them to feel safe. We want them to have everything that, in a way, we've spoiled them. And we've displayed an unrealistic view of what life is. Yeah. And then you can't jump from that to then being mad that they have this unrealistic view.
Yeah, sometimes we systematically create this bubble around our children. And then when it's time to free them into whatever, into life, into the world, into their own future, we tether that bubble, right? And we want to pull it back. So they start to float off and say, well, I just learned yesterday that there's a new obstacle. Come back so I can put another layer around your bubble, and then another layer, and then another layer. So many layers that we can't even see our children and they can't see us.
Right.
But we're connected with them.
Right.
And now we're getting to a place, Eric, that some of those dreams or those fantasy worlds, those bubbles are bursting.
Yeah.
Because the world is changing so rapidly that the parents themselves are saying, this was not the world I grew up in. This wasn't the world that I knew yesterday.
Right.
Where are we? We're in a twilight zone.
Absolutely.
Seriously, talking about today.
Absolutely.
And now the parent may not even know what to do in reality. And the child is asking, what do I do? Right. Parent, pride and ego, we have to set that aside, maybe step up to say, I don't know.
That's right.
Let's figure this out together.
That's right. There are some things, we didn't go backwards on everything. There are some things that my father did that this is the third quarter. Came to the game late. But my father would always help to defend my self-esteem around sports. And so if I had coaches that were unfair, he would join in with me in saying that they were unfair. Now, when I needed to work on stuff, he would tell me that as well. But the growth that I've made in the third quarter, so that means I didn't have this down pat in the first and second quarter. But in the third quarter, I now realize that when my children are getting pummeled, when life is dealing out a biased hand to them, when they're in the midst of a situation where they are being treated unfairly, I have another way of looking at that now. I don't simply have to join in and chime. I'll do that for a minute for your self-esteem.
Yep.
But I also will now, there's a rider that I'll add to the message.
Wow.
And the writer is this: it builds resilience. In other words, if not you, who? And so when you go through difficult situations in life, don't be so frustrated about that. Know that that is what life is at times, and you have enough because you have a relationship with God. Your Father, your ultimate Father, controls the whole game. So why would you mope around as though anybody out here has control over what's going to happen with your future? But get the lessons out of this. Even when it's unfair, if there are things that you can do better, look to understand as many of those as possible. And then at the end, believe that that which is in you is stronger than that which you are facing. And you can then succeed. And so the new lesson is resilience. Don't be frustrated that sometimes life is going to deal out lemons to you.
Yeah. Resilience, Eric. What a conversation today. What a conversation.
I've been on fire.
Community, you jumped up, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. Want to say thank you.
Right.
You know, always. We don't take you for granted. It's always, you know, kind of a dream or a fantasy for Eric and I to know that you take some time out of your day. And hopefully we can continue these conversations, just kind of start our weekends together.
That's right.
The week is tough enough as it is for all of us, but let's take some time out on the weekend, sit down with a cup of coffee, a tea, maybe our family, and have a diversity conversation.
And let me say this in closing, that Tommy's not just saying this here to you. Last week, Tommy and I were playing golf, and then we were sitting around, and Tommy just said to me, Eric, I can't even believe that we have people that will show up to watch the show. And he, like you know, many times we're like little kids. We still are insecure. Sometimes people look at us and think that we have a lot of pride. We're not looking at ourselves as more than we are. Oftentimes we have imposter syndrome like other people do. And so your presence affirms us and really encourages us, and it adds value to this experience. This experience is made better when you chime in and join in. And we know that as we find other ways to get you engaged, that we can build something of value for this country and the world to be able to hear. And that's not so Tommy and I can be famous. That's so that some of the principles and values and philosophies that all of us have and share, that those can then have a greater audience. Because I think at the end of the day, we need to redirect our influence towards making godly changes in ourselves, our communities, and the world around us. And that's the only hope that we ultimately have for a better tomorrow. So thank you all for joining me.
Thank you. I think that's it. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Take care of each other. Stay blessed.
Bye now.
Let's go through those comments there. Boy, quick show.
Yes, sir.